File item 200. That's AB 390. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 390 by Assemblymember Cooper and others, an act relating to DNA evidence.
Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. In November 2004, voters passed Proposition 69, the DNA Fingerprint, Unsolved Crime, and Innocence Protection Act. The goal of Prop 69 was simple: to keep our communities safe and prevent thousands of crimes by providing law enforcement officers and agencies with the latest scientific technology available for accurately and expeditiously identifying, apprehending, arresting, and convicting criminal offenders and exonerating persons wrongfully suspected of accused crimes. Nearly 10 years have passed since voters approved Prop 69, and the results have been undeniable. The impact of Prop 69 has helped solve many old murders, rapes, assaults, robberies, and other serious violent crimes, and has ensured the integrity of convictions so that the innocent individuals are not needlessly investigated, arrested, prosecuted, or convicted. AB 390 furthers the intent of Prop 69 by restoring the collection of DNA for felony offenses which are reclassified to misdemeanors as a result of Prop 47. Let me be clear, AB 390 is a restoration of DNA collection as intended by the voters under Prop 69. AB 390 requires a higher standard for DNA collection. That higher standard is a conviction of a misdemeanor. And finally, AB 390 does not apply to juveniles. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Gatto, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, folks, we give a lot of speeches around here, and I'm sure that I've given a lot of speeches in my time. One of the hardest speeches I've ever had to give is to explain to my children why their grandfather was not coming home again, and why their grandfather, they never got a chance to say goodbye to him. And, of course, that's because their grandfather was shot. Someone walked into my dad's house and killed him. And for a lot of families like mine, you know, you're waiting for that call. You're waiting for that phone call from law enforcement that forensic evidence has led to a lead in a case. Prop 69 is all about that, and this bill is about Prop 47. It restores the people who otherwise would have been tested under Prop 47. It restores the testing of those people, and I think that's a very, very important step, and I rise in support of this bill. I do, however, note that Prop 69 has been appealed to the Court of Appeal, and a Court of Appeal struck down Prop 69 last December. It happened right before Christmas, and it was not too well noticed. That decision is now on appeal to the California Supreme Court, and its outcome is very much in doubt. If the Supreme Court does not overturn that Court of Appeal's decision, this bill will have no effect. If the Supreme Court does not overturn that decision, Prop 69 will not exist. If the Supreme Court does not overturn that decision, there will be nobody tested for these crimes and no crime solved in the state of California. These are hundreds of thousands of rapes and murders where we will let the rapists go free. I would submit that this legislature has to do stuff in addition to this bill to solve these issues. We cannot let Prop 69 expire. We need a constitutional solution for that. Thought I had one proposed. Didn't fare so well, but I asked for an aye vote on this bill. But in the meantime, I think this legislature also has to consider what we're going to do if Prop 69 is ruled unconstitutional as the lower court did. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gatto. Mr. Lackey.
Yes, just real briefly, I would like to thank my colleague from Glendale for standing for one of the most important beneficiaries of this bill, and that are victims. Too often we focus on the other part of our justice system, the perpetrators, and this is such an important bill because it also exonerates the innocent. So for heaven's sakes, let's realize the opportunity we have here. Please support this bill because the muted voice of victims rarely get heard, and this is a chance we can champion them. Thank you.
With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 64, noes 2. Measure passes. File item 201, that's AB 423. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 423 by Assemblymember Cooley, an act relating to public social services.
Mr. Cooley, you may open.
Colleagues, this is a bill to extend benefits to foster care and relative caregivers and expand benefits statewide. It follows on last year's budget deal. It's a good bill. As I say, support. This supports vulnerable kids in our state and will provide them with more resources to succeed in life. I ask you to join me in supporting AB 423 on behalf of California's foster children.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. File item 202, AB 435. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 435 by Assemblymember Chang and others, an act relating to state government.
Ms. Chang, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. I am pleased to present to you AB 435. This is a common sense measure which utilizes technology for increased transparency and access. AB 435 will require Cal EPA, the Natural Resources Agency, and the boards and commissions under them to webcast all public meetings. Additionally, these meetings will have to provide increased access to California residents by allowing them to participate in public comment or question periods via phone or other electronic communication. AB 435 is an important bill that brings more transparency to two agencies that have some of the heaviest impacts on our state. This bill carries support from stakeholders across the spectrum, and with that, members, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Chang. Seeing no discussion on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. Moving to file item 204. That's AB 483. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 483 by Assemblymember Patterson and others, an act relating to healing arts.
Mr. Patterson, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I present to you AB 483. This would standardize first-time licensing fees across state licensed professions that follow a birth month renewal policy. This will specifically help dentists, dental hygienists, osteopaths, hearing aid dispensers, occupational therapists, physical therapists, veterinarian technicians, veterinarians, architects, acupuncturists. It makes sure that the charge for an initial license is proportional to the amount of time these professionals can actually go to work with their new license. In short, it puts a stop to overcharging perhaps as much as $1 million annually these individuals at relicensing time, makes it easier for these professionals to start earning a living. This bill passed the Assembly Business and Professions Committee and Appropriations Committee unanimously. I want to take a moment also to thank the principal co-author with me on this, Assemblymember Gordon, and also the co-authors, Chang, Chavez, Grove, Obernolte, Waldron, Wilk, and Senator Anderson. Thank you for the help in making this a reality, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Seeing no discussion on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 64, no 0. Measure passes. File item 205, pass and retain. Moving to file item 206. That's AB 522. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 522 by Assemblymember Burke and others, an act relating to public contracts.
Ms. Burke, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Assembly Bill 522 requires California Department of Technology to create a standardized contractor performance assessment reporting system to evaluate how well contractors perform on large IT projects. As we are all very aware, California, like many other states, has had a long history of unsuccessful IT projects. As indicated in recent state auditor reports, between 1994 and 2013, the state terminated or suspended 7 IT projects after spending nearly $1 billion. Currently, the state has a number of IT projects under development that are reported to cost more than $4 billion. AB 522 will allow the state to evaluate how well a contractor performed on these IT projects by creating a contractor performance assessment reporting system. The data that is collected through the performance assessment on the contractors will then be taken into consideration in the evaluation and awarding of any future state IT projects. Using this data will serve as a valuable tool to ensure vendor quality, but also to ensure that California has an accurate picture of the vendor it is entering into a contract with. This is a common sense measure that received bipartisan support in both policy and fiscal committees. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. File item 207. That's AB 557. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 557 by Assemblymember Irwin, enacting into nonprofit corporations.
Ms. Irwin, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 557 will create a streamlined administrative dissolution process for inactive nonprofit corporations that have been suspended for at least 48 continuous months after proper notice has been served. The current dissolution process for nonprofits is extremely lengthy and bureaucratic. AB 557 would open communications between the departments involved regulating nonprofit corporations in California and streamline the administrative dissolution process for nonprofit corporations. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. That's ayes 63, no 0. Measure passes. File item 208, AB 577. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 577 by Assemblymember Bonilla, enacting into biomethane.
Ms. Bonilla.
Mr. Speaker and members, I present to you AB 577, which significantly reduces greenhouse gas emissions through investment in biogas production. It creates a grant program at the California Energy Commission for biogas infrastructure and purification technology. Biogas, as you know, is a sustainable and cleaner alternative to natural gas. And if only 10% of California's natural gas use were replaced with biogas, GHG emissions would be reduced by tens of millions of tons annually. The biogas market, however, in California has not developed because the collection and purification is very costly. Additional investment in infrastructure will help make projects a reality and allow for additional collection of gas and injection into the pipeline. AB 577 will significantly reduce GHG emissions, promote biogas development in a sustainable manner, and reduce the barriers identified in the California Energy Commission's Bioenergy Action Plan. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Bonilla. Seeing no discussion on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 64. No 0. Measure passes. File item 209, that's AB 580. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 580 by Assemblymember O'Donnell, enacting into pupil health.
Mr. O'Donnell, you may open.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 580 requires the Department of Education to develop a model referral protocol for student mental health concerns for voluntary use by schools. This bill requires that the model protocol, created for use by school staff, address the involvement of parents, be evidence-based and culturally appropriate, and be adaptable to local service arrangements. It will not require or suggest in any way that school staff should diagnose or treat mental health problems. AB 580 will equip teachers and other school staff with an important tool for the early identification and referral of students with mental health problems, thereby improving both academic and health outcomes.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Mr. Bigelow, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today as Vice Chair of the Appropriates Committee, and I also rise because Republicans abstained on AB 580 in the Assembly Appropriates Committee due to late amendments. The amendments make the bill supportable by addressing our concerns with the mandate. I'm recommending an aye vote.
With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 61, no 0. Measure passes. File item 210, AB 590. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 590 by Assemblymember Daly and others, enacting into greenhouse gases.
Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we need this legislation because all the carbon savings from AB 32 regulations are wiped out every year by catastrophic wildfires. AB 590 would address incentive for biomass utilization, ag waste, and forest waste. It diverts biomass from landfills and creates renewable energy. It creates jobs with a myriad of co-benefits to wildfire, air quality, and water supply. Thinning our forest will reduce firefighting costs and create more water that flows to all of our districts. It will also produce jobs and reduce pollution in the Central Valley. We spend billions of dollars suppressing wildfires, money better spent elsewhere. I would like to thank my Assembly member from Bakersfield, Mr. Salas, who is a joint author, and all the members who have helped craft this important piece of environmental legislation.
Mr. Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in strong support, as indicated by my fellow member, in strong support of Assembly Bill 590. Members, this is a bill that will help promote the continued use of biomass facilities. Biomass facilities reduce pollution by 90 to 95% in places such as the Central Valley and other places of the entire state. What this does is this incentivizes a program where we divert ag waste or wood waste to these biomass facilities that not only produce renewable energy, but they help actually clean the air. And so with that, members, I urge a strong aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Wood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I rise in support of this bill as a co-author. The benefits of biomass in rural California really should go without saying. As we look forward to technologies that are going to help us with greenhouse gas reduction, it's important that we not ignore existing technologies that provide good jobs, give us great opportunities to get rid of waste, help us thin our forests, and be sustainable at the same time. So I urge your support on this bill.
With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. File item 211. That's AB 617. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 617 by Assemblymember Perea, an act relating to water.
Mr. Perea.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 617 would make it easier for California to meet its groundwater goals passed by the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act last year. Specifically, the bill would allow for groundwater sustainability agencies access to P3s. It would ensure the state entities such as state prisons and others are demonstrating compliance with the goals of SGMA. Clarify that the formation of a GSA would not be subject to CEQA. It would also ensure the State Water Resources Control Board only go after bad actors that are non-compliant. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Bigelow, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of AB 617. Last year, the legislature passed unprecedented legislation to regulate California's groundwater, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, better known as SGMA. While we have yet to feel the magnitude of SGMA, we do know there is a need for more flexibility for administering agencies, also oversight for implementation, as well as compliance with deadline extensions. 617 will do just that. I would like to thank the author and the stakeholders for their continued hard work on AB 617 and encourage a strong aye vote.
Seeing no additional discussion, with that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 65, noes 1. Measure passes. Moving to file item 212, that's AB 652. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 652 by Assemblymember Cooley and others, and act relating to state highways.
Mr. Cooley.
Colleagues, I bring you AB 652. This is a Sacramento County delegation measure. It's co-authored by my colleagues from Sacramento and Elk Grove to relinquish a portion of State Route 16 in Sacramento County to Sacramento County for future planning and roadway administration purposes. I request your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. File item 213, AB 678. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 678 by Assemblymember O'Donnell, and act relating to greenhouse gases.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 678 provides funding to our state ports so they may invest in energy efficiency projects, improve air quality around the ports, and continue their effort to be green. These investments will not only further reduce the environmental impacts associated with ports, but have the potential to lower port operating costs, resulting in improved competitiveness and job growth in our state. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Seeing no discussion on this item, Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 66, no 0. Measure passes. File item 214, AB 721. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 721 by Assemblymember Medina, an act relating to student financial aid.
Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 721 provides students with the necessary information to make informed decisions about college attendance costs and student lending options. Most college students face substantial student loans upon graduation, and many of these are private loans, which are typically more costly and provide fewer protections compared to federal loans. AB 721 would require schools to report on graduate student debt and help students avoid unnecessary private loans. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Medina. Seeing no discussion on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. File item 215. That's AB 802. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 802 by Assemblymember Williams, an act relating to energy efficiency.
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Speaker, members, existing policy leads to a large pool of stranded energy efficiency savings because IOUs can only offer financial incentives for improvements above code requirements. Evidence shows that the large majority of potential savings is actually below code because there are a large number of legal, non-conforming, existing housing and commercial building stock. Some customers, the incentive amount IOUs can offer isn't enough to motivate the upgrades required, resulting in deferred projects. This bill allows IOUs to provide incentives for improvements from existing conditions. Amendments out of appropriations make it clear this bill does not require a rate increase. And without authorizing some form of flexibility, it won't be able to achieve the governor's goal of doubling building efficiency by 2030. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Seeing no discussion on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 66, no 0. Measure passes. We're going to stay with Mr. Williams, members, and move back to file item 123. That's file item 123, AB 741. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 741 by Assemblymember Williams, an act relating to mental health.
Mr. Williams.
Members, 741 expands the definition of social rehabilitation facility from exclusively adults to include children and adolescents. The reason is expanding this definition creates a category of licensing in state statute for children's crisis residential services. Members, right now, in most of your counties, if a child is in mental health crisis, say they commit suicide or try to commit suicide, they will not have a place for them within their county. 47 out of 58 counties lack any child psychiatric hospital inpatient beds for children under 12. And unfortunately, members, children under 12 are in these crises. Some do make such attempts, and it is unconscionable to force people that need that kind of support network after that to then be exported to one of the only 9 counties that have this type of beds. The need for children's crisis residential services could not be more acute, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Seeing no discussion on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File item 216, pass and retain. Moving to file item 217. That's AB 810. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 810 by Assemblymember Ridley Thomas, an act relating to state highways.
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, colleagues. AB 810 is a district bill that would authorize the California Transportation Commission to relinquish a specified portion of State Highway Route 187 and State Highway Route 1 in the city of Los Angeles under certain conditions. This is Venice Boulevard and Lincoln Boulevard for those who have been to Los Angeles. We certainly hope to keep our west side traffic issues mitigated, and we think it best if the local jurisdiction can do so. So in order to keep the boardwalk clean and nice and the streets paved and sanitary, we hope that you support this bill, and thank you for your consideration of the proposal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Ridley Thomas. With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 73, no 0. Measure passes.